a video art cut. But they would have the benefits of it. They would love to have all the benefits, but no work. So these are the typical pretend runners who doesn't even qualify to run a race, but suddenly appear at the final point, moment of finish line, and claim, hey, I would rather take the trophy, I would rather take the trophy. And if there was a fair criteria and competition, they wouldn't even qualify to begin with, let alone compete. But they would expect the trophy, the first prize, to be theirs, to be just given to them. Why? Because I just exist. This is the same way. So these are like, oh, I did all the work, I gave birth to a child. Billions of people do it every day, so what? It's not like that. It's like they would make it seem like they did some extraordinary, climbing at the most highest mountain 1,000 times over, and it was the highest achievement and they deserve a trophy for it. They would make it seem like that. Any basic stuff, if anybody ever manages to make them do any work at all, if for that one work that they did for one time, they would claim benefits for a problem, probably even eternal benefits for it, just because that one time I did it, that one day I cooked. The kind of entitlement and the distorted attitude, the delusional sense of grandiosity would be so much that it is not hard to miss actually. Even if they try to, I've seen other kind where they are not that loud, like more of a direct drama creators. I have seen more sophisticated characterless women like that who do the same kind of witchery and misbehavior, and they do it in an appearance of a warm, nurturing, kind, very well educated, secure, good looking lady that really has this gentle. That's why I did one video, remember, where there is this patronizing, condescending, infantilizing voice of women, a feminine voice people use in order to control and put someone down and manipulate them. It's this kind of women. So either they are the quintessential typical drama seekers, okay, who have zero respect for anything, okay, and anybody, and in fact they would even and then there is this silent, pretend sophisticated, pretend nice, pretend decent, pretend warm and deep and educated woman who is also the same kind, just that she comes with a different appearance to how she carries herself. And both of them have this sense of entitlement. They are so distorted that they would expect everybody to just do them favors and all that. And they wouldn't ever contribute anything from their side. They would never really take any responsibility. Their lives were only built by literally taking off of others. And these kind of people usually are also scammers. Yeah. So whatever the appearances would be on the surface, they are usually scammers. They target people to steal from on a regular basis. Just like they target people for favors, and that's what they would do for financial and other stuff also. And they have they literally even expect, they abuse, because they abuse the only authority and power they ever have got is by having the child, okay, by having the title mother. Now she can control a lot of things about others. Instead of facing her own distorted personality, they would rather destroy somebody else by controlling and managing them. So that position, they use it literally as their identity, and most of their lives surround around that, and they expect to be served and taken care of even by children from young age. They abuse that power And that entitlement and that arrogance and that distortedness would come out in such a way that they would even expect the child to take care of them. So either, and they themselves have no skills to do anything useful in their life. So they would constantly criticize and put down the children, make them the same insecure, broken person that they are. And by doing so, they feel important and powerful. Then they abuse power in many ways. It could be in any number of ways. Okay, when I say intrusion of privacy, it could be anything, yes. They could do the same thing that a distorted male would do for a child, like I already mentioned. And in this case, yes. So when I focused more on the female child here, and that's how she would treat them. Okay, she would copy the child or imitate her and compete with her, wear the same kind of dresses they wear, or be like them, or make them be like them. Okay, something like that. You would literally see that they don't have the emotional capacity to be a nurturing mother or a parent, okay, or be an inspiring adult for the child, but rather you would see either they're competing or comparing or always trying to make a copy out of the child, or the child would want to become a copy of this person, because she wouldn't leave them any room for their own personality to grow and become their own person. They would suffocate and smother them so much that they wouldn't grow into an independent, separate individual. You could see that the kind of hold she would have on the child. Financially, she would dominate them, or this power structure was already established from childhood, that was there, and putting down and making it seem like they are powerless was already established. So the emotional power was also there. They would manipulate emotionally so that they would get them to do things for them instead of letting the child figure themselves out and live their own life or do their own thing. The child's job would become primarily to please this mother figure. Literally around her whole life would surround around that. And if she cannot make her feel good, if her mood is gone, she would be terrified, because she knows her day is gonna be like horrible. She might even physically abuse, yes, but most of it would be emotional and verbal abuse. The mouth would never stop. Like that's what I said. The criticisms and putting downs and commenting and being that over talkative, suffocating nature would be the number one you would notice. They wouldn't leave them any room to be themselves. There is not gonna be. And her job would be to completely please this mother figure and live for her. If her mood is disturbed, or if her satisfactions were not met by the child, then she would make a huge ruckus or a problem, and there's going to be a lot of fear around this dynamic for the child. The child would be terrified, even when they grow into adult, would be terrified to be themselves or think for themselves or look about themselves, because then immediately they would come and say, you are being so selfish, you are being ungrateful, I gave birth to you. If not for me, you would not even be here. I took care of you. She would have barely even gave him, the milk as a child. Even that would have been a big deal. People had to literally beg because the child is crying, and she's like, oh, I feel uncomfortable. I would rather not give them the, breastfeeding. They would be like that, like so indifferent. They don't have the emotional capacity at all. Even then, by the time the child grows, they would say, you know how hard I worked for you, you know how much I did for you, you know I gave birth for you, I know I took care of you, and still you are ungrateful. It would be a rant like this, that the child feels so ashamed and guilty, as if she did something wrong or committed a crime by thinking for herself. So that kind of emotional hold they would have, and this kind of hold and manipulation and drama And the projecting of guilt and shame and brokenness and criticism would apply both for female and male child. But when it comes to female, what I would like to focus more on is they would bring them in such a way. See, she herself is distorted, which means she has no sexual boundaries also. Yeah, she has no bodily respect also. Definitely. So she would teach that child that kind of ways and tell her it's normal and normalized and all that stuff. Yes, she would even expect her or groom her or mold her to be that kind of individual, and makes her seem like this is how it is for us or in our family or in our life or for women in general. Because this kind of women do not like or respect the concept of real independence and empowerment. So that means going beyond the body and actually growing a sense of personality, intelligence, character, skills, and go do something with your life, dreams, okay, passion, do something constructive, this and that, have hobbies, have interests, have this and that, have friends, have your own personality. They don't like any of this. That is why they hate women who have those qualities, and that is why they always felt like this child is a competition by default by just existing. Because what if I don't control and manage and mold them into a useless robot like me? What if they become independent and empowered and successful the way I would never become? So her goal is literally to break her down so that she won't become that woman that she's always envious of, scared of, and jealous of, and she would never work on herself to become that woman. Yes, this is what happens when it comes to the female child, and especially with the sexual boundaries. She would literally train her to do anything and everything, and it is okay, it is alright. She might even allow certain people to violate her like that. Because I would like to bring this concept to the male child also. So many dark, distorted women, you'll be surprised, just like the dark distorted man would have inappropriately did some things with their own male child. Maybe even female child, yes, but with their male child, and they would normalize it for them. And I have come across families where the incest is not only in the form of the masculine grooming and taking advantage and crossing the boundaries and disrespecting a female child, but it's also the mother, a distorted mother, who would do the same with a male child and grooms him and tells him and trains him to say it is normal, it is okay, it is what it is, and it is okay. They might even totally convince them that this is what is done with in our families. And they might even see, the thing with sexual boundaries is there is all kinds of abuse already there. The problem with sexual boundaries and lack of it in this kind of distorted environment is they might have even done certain things in front of children at a young age and normalized it. So the children also get exposed to sexual behavior from very early ages, become vulnerable that way. And this parent would have actually played an active part, yes, in making them so. It's very intentional and deliberate when they exposed this children and child to those kind of stuff, either through media or through their own, humans within their homes. It's even worse that these women would allow the children to either directly witness or come to an understanding or see them with another man apart from their own husband behaving inappropriately, or maybe directly even naked and doing things in front of them, or at least in a way to make sure that they would see and know. So the concept of guilt and shame and this perversion is literally ingrained in their life from very young age. They would be shocked to the core at a very young age, and they cannot share with others, obviously. And it was made and at such a regular rate that it was normalized for them. At the same time, their soul or heart would feel uncomfortable about it, but they can't express it. First of all, they don't even know how to express it. All they know is that something is very uncomfortable about it. That's enough. That's bad enough. Just that they don't know how to process it. And that's the moral conscience telling them, ringing the alarm actually. But if they don't process it or they don't learn how to get over it and all that, it would become a problem later on. I would focus on the environment in which they would be brought up. They might even, when it comes to male, even female male children, they literally become pimps and solicit them to have improper behaviors with their own children, with other people. If not for father, sometimes it even happens with a father, with a mother, and sometimes even beyond that. And that's where the cult attitude comes into picture. Because those behaviors were never normal to begin with. No. Nobody healthy would do that. So if that's already happening, it means they have already been part of something like that, a culture. This is never okay. So when they try to say incest is normal in our life, in our bloodlines or in our families, they literally are parts of these cults. They are already there from generations and generations and generations. They are used to it, they are okay with it, they are comfortable with it. That's why they are grooming the next generations to be that. So their entire lives always comes down to selling their bodies, selling themselves out, selling their bodies, selling themselves out. And that becomes normalized. And they would have been brainwashed in many number of ways to say it is okay, it is all right. And this becomes the crucial, abusive, very, very, very destructive aspect when it comes to the distorted mother. So apart from all the violations and apart from all the masculine things that we already have been aware of, this is something a mother figure would do which would be even more damaging, considering that we wouldn't even expect on a normal basis as to this is what a mother figure would do. They would do it to anybody, if not their own children also. They would solicit other people to do something inappropriate to someone in their own families. Nephews and nieces, relatives, neighbors, friends, peers. They literally pimp, just like they prostitute themselves out, because everything becomes about their body, sexuality and selling themselves out. Because they don't know anything beyond that. They don't have the capacity to be anything more than that. And that's the least anybody could ever be. Believe me, that's the least, that's the bottom of the bottom. And that is where they reside, and that is what they make everybody around them to be, and that is the only thing they would accept in anybody else also. So anybody who comes into their life, even if their own child, they would groom it to be that. And they would say it's okay, it's normal. And this is the most damaging thing they would do. And they're all parts of cults, no doubt. They will practice witchcraft, they would all, because these are rituals again. Because it's an inappropriate behavior, and incest is never normal. There is a sacredness to relationship when it comes to private, romantic, sexual relationships. And when that sacredness is taken away, it's always a perversion, which means it's already part of the devil side, the demon side, the cult side. They just normalize it because it's a ritual. They are gaining something from it, yes. That's why they focus morely on the over-sexualized life and over-sexualized behavior. And they instill the same culture everywhere in their own families and everybody they know. They may have a projection of a very upstanding citizen on the front, but behind the scenes, this is what they do and this is who they are. All they know is to be this dark prostitute who literally does the same things, witchcraft, all dark magic, everything, so she would gain from their own children by sacrificing them. This is a sacrifice. By taking away their innocence, what is that? And that too, their own parent, male or female. This is what they do. And this is how they break them early on. And then they literally let someone in their own family do it to their own children. Again, it's a ritual. through which they would have gained something in the cult, status or money and power and all this. And they practice witchcraft, they do magic, they literally control their lives down to every detail, and they don't leave them any room for growth for who they are ever. And there is going to be this too much entanglement into their lives, so much that it would suffocate anybody, not just the child, from ever being themselves. There is no room for anything other than their own personality being projected into every other. It's like a carbon copy of the same behavior to everybody. Anything other than that is either shunned or broken down or seen as a threat and destroyed. The same would happen to their own child. And this is what happens in the cults. These rituals happen and they normalize it and they say it's alright. Because they literally sacrificed their own children for their gains. That's what it actually is. And this is what a typical distorted mother would do to a child, to anybody. And they wouldn't care. All they care is about appearances, material stuff, status, money, power, control, and all that. The carbon copy of her own dark, witchy, pathetic, weak, loser world, where everything is just down to the private parts and selling themselves out and nothing else. The status, the appearance would be something else. And they live like that and they promote that kind of lifestyle and they make it look like it's normal or okay, or at least they force everybody around them in their family to accept that this is all right and this is okay, and they have to, because they were desperate for that power and authority and that kind of adulation, and that's why they join these kind of groups, and this is how they turn their families into. And I think this is more than enough. And they become the major controller when it comes to their lives, even their partners, especially when it's a male child. You would choose a partner that is convenient. When I talked about the distorted, the divine masculine's family, it's always usually the mother figure who plays a major role in him choosing his partner. She would choose someone who is more convenient and bitchy like her, to destroy her child, because it was always about sacrificing that child to the maximum extent, through which she would gain the most. So she would do the same thing when it comes to their relationships also. And that's why this inherent culture of, oh please, do what I would like to say, do whatever I say, do whatever I would order you to do. You don't choose someone that you want, or don't go for a career that you want. Anything, not just the choice of partner. Everything would be their choice and their control. And it would be for their benefit. Whether they make it obvious or not, it's only because it benefits them. It's never about the child or anybody. It's always been about them. And they use this overly nurturing, overly kind, overly smooth, overly boundaryless fake care, that emotional manipulation and sexual manipulation, to get that approval and to get them to do what they want to do. She is inherently manipulative. She's twisted. I mean, you do that to a child, to your own child, then what else is that? And she makes the twistedness normalized, and she twists everything so much that it becomes so normalized for the child. And by the time they become adult, it's impossible to break free. Impossible, no, but extremely difficult to break free from that manipulation, because it is so twisted. There is no room for truth anywhere near it. In their lives, in their appearances, in their choices, in everything about their own lives, everything is lie, and it has to be a lie, and it has to be built around lies, and it has to be kept hidden always for the sake of appearances. And they make sure of that because they love that control. They would love to be looked up to, and they would do anything to get that. And these are the people I talked about, the Black Widow category. And when it comes to their children, this is what they do, for the sake of that power and control and sense of importance. And so they can control, and through sacrificing them, they would gain. And they will be okay with it. Yep. The child may not know it. The child may be made to believe that their affection is like, oh, she's coming from an overly motherly place, overly loving place, that's why she's like this with me, kind of. Because they put that twistedness in their head. It was never about that. It was always about them. And if it would mean that they have to be deleted out of the picture for them to gain the most, they would do it in a drop of a second. This is something the child would not know. Most of the times they wouldn't have awareness of that coldness in them. They would not. That overly manipulative, nice picture they put, right? They would think of it as overly liking, overly protective, overly loving, over caring, over emotional. That is why they're attached to them so much, that kind of impression they would have given. The reality is they are gaining by doing that. Sacrifice again. Just like a distorted man with a good woman, distorted woman to a good man. This is the same dynamic on a parent level. They were gaining through the child, compromised and sacrificed. That's what they were doing. And they would literally delete them out of the picture if that's what would profit them the most. This is something the child would not. Most of the times they would not have awakened to that. And that's the real truth about this distorted mother I was talking about. If you have to be sacrificed, they would do it in a second. They wouldn't have to think about it. Just that you might not have realized it, that you might not have really grown yourself enough to separate and see, this is not who I am, and walk away. Only then you would see that. Otherwise you wouldn't. And that's the harshest truth of a distorted mother figure. They would make you believe they love you too much, they care about you too much, they attach with you too much because it's love. And that's how the distorted love concept is also being introduced into their life. Lack of privacy, lack of boundaries, lack of respect, lack of sexual boundaries, lack of any control of your own life. So this child would grow up and want to control somebody else also the same way and think that it is called love. It's perverted. It's not love. That is what they should realize. Both male and female child. Your mother was a distorted mother. You have to run away from them to even have a chance of living your own life. And